Welcome to Twitter Jabs 2, and we are going on with the conversation of the Democratic Republic of Congo joining the East African community. Now we see that on 29th of March 2022, during the 19th Extraordinary Summit of the East African Community, Democratic Republic of Congo was integrated in the East African community and the East African Community Bloc. Well, joining me on this conversation to deliberate on this conversation and give us more insight into what it means for DRC joining and being the 7th country to be part of the East African community is none other than Hajji Ssekamatte, who is a social and political analyst. Good morning.
Good morning. Good morning, viewers, and thank you for hosting me.
Yes, thanks for joining us on Sunrise at Sea here on CTV. Well, let's get to the conversation now that DRC is part of the East African community. It started with just 3 countries, which was Uganda, Tanzania, Kenya, and then we see Rwanda and Burundi coming in as well, and then South Sudan, and finally we have DRC being part of the East African community. What does it mean for the East African community and for the Democratic Republic of Congo?
I think we should welcome the Democratic Republic of Congo. It has been a very big achievement for them because since the 1960s, Democratic Republic of Congo has been never stable. Social and economical transformation program that they had from Kwame Nkrumah, from those days, they never worked because of instability in their country. So in 2022, if they become a member of East African Community, I think it's a big milestone for them. And also, they should be proud of this. I think their leadership, since 15 years ago, they have worked hard to make sure they are also integrated. But on the side of Congo, I think they have a reason to celebrate joining the East African community. But you see, the East African community was established for a common value, to have social issues, security issues, economical issues, borderless issues, for example, to be resolved, as in having a East African community that is united comprehensively. But even with the countries that have been members from day one, we are still seeing some challenges, and I think if the leaders don't come up with a fair way of managing things, the East African community still may not work the purpose of its establishment. But nevertheless, in a democracy and in growing economies like in East Africa here, these are one of the steps that they have to take. First of all, when you are united in this way, then you start looking at the issues of economy, you start looking at the issues of infrastructure, you start looking at the issues of security, sharing of intelligence, having a single currency, and so on and so forth. So having 7 countries under one umbrella, there are many advantages for us who are in East Africa, but also the will to put to implement the East African Community Treaty comprehensively still lies in the hands of the government and who heads which country.
Absolutely. Now we see that actually Democratic Republic of Congo applied for to be integrated into the East African Community back in 2019. Now why has it taken so long, about 3 years, for it to be approved now, 2022?
You see, some heads of government, I must say, were so selfish about the leadership of East African Community and implementing the treaty comprehensively. As I told you, each country in East Africa here, they have independent Millennium Development Goals. And the challenges we have as individual states differ. Some countries, for example, I can tell you, they have improper way of handling things, and yet others are trying to democratically do a lot of things, for example, and also try to grow their infrastructure, which, for example, in Uganda we have we have not done good at all. Because I can give you the project like a standard gauge railway, where Kenya did its part and for us we did nothing.
Yes,
and the East African community, for example, was to mean that if I have goods, for example, I should go and sell them in Kenya at ease.
Yes.
Let us have a free trade economy among ourselves.
Okay.
But you can still see that Ugandan goods are stopped at the border. They cannot cross the other side.
Yes.
Because there is some issues, and sometimes these are political issues. They are not even genuine issues. So I said, without a comprehensive will to put in practice the treaty that is drafted many years ago, because as I've told you, President Nyerere, President Kenyatta Senior, and Nkrumah, they all had these plans to integrate East Africa. Absolutely. But what did they achieve? And this is in 1960, in 62.
And this is
and it is now 22.
Yes.
Almost 60 years. So you can see that there is a very big gap in having a comprehensive will to implement the treaty. Because as I told you, there is still complaints. For example, the issue we had with our neighbors, Rwanda, to have a border closed for nearly 3 years. These things shouldn't happen when we say we are now one community. The Kenyan person should not come to Uganda and he or she need a work permit to work in Uganda. So which community are we talking about if all these obstacles are still in existence? So to me, it is a good idea. But
Yes. Putting
it in practice is hard. And for Ugandans, you should wait to celebrate, because you see, Congo is coming on board
Yes.
yesterday, and on the same day, another rebel group is establishing and they are fighting.
Yes.
And we are seeing our borders being full of refugees coming to seek asylum this side. So with all these problems, I think when they say, let us go to the rule book, let us see what the tutors say, what is my responsibility as Uganda? Am I doing my part? Am I honoring all the clauses? Without putting that in consideration, the treaty will be there, the draft will be good, but putting it in practice and the common man to benefit, it will take years.
Okay, you have highlighted so many issues that are going on in the East African community, from the unrest in Congo to, Ugandan trucks and goods being halted from going to Kenya. So do you think that this is the best time or is not the best time for Congo to join the East African community, even given the fact that we are just recovering from the COVID-19 pandemic?
Yeah, I totally agree that Congo is coming on board at the right time. Because as I've told you, Congo has never been stable.
Yes.
Since the independence. UN has been in Congo. They have tried to do a lot of things. It is the largest mineral-rich country in Africa here. It's the largest country. But the leadership focused on managing one part of Congo and leaving like the other part of Congo. And this is a side that has so many minerals, has so many timbers, and the big players of Africa and the West, they also have interest in Congo. So for them to come up and join the East Africa, they are going to be protected more, and they will have a room to solve many internal issues. For example, the insecurity issues, the infrastructure issues, because without being stable in a country, you cannot achieve the economic goals you have. Yes. So you need to stabilize the country, have proper leadership, have proper systems, put proper policies in practice, put infrastructure that benefits the local people you have in your country. Then like that, the country can grow and you benefit from all these benefits. But if you have not done your part internally, then there's a gap also.
Okay. Now, moving on, you are talking about if Congo does not do its part, then it will not be as effective as it should be. And
not only Congo. I'll tell you, like in Uganda, our interest, for example, we have our development goals.
Yes.
We set development goals and we say in the year 2020, for example, in agriculture, in Uganda, there is what we are supposed to achieve. But what about Congo? What about Kenya? What about Rwanda? So what I'm saying, we have different development goals as countries. Yet we say we are in one community. There is a need for us to unify our development plans and go by them. There's no way I can grow my economy as a single state, for example, Uganda, when you don't allow me to trade between you and me. When you will find an obstacle because we have not agreed on this issue, then the borders close.
Yes.
Then you block my goods from accessing your market. Last time I was interacting with a team that sell eggs to Kenya, and they were saying they had to destroy millions and millions of eggs simply because the team sat somewhere and they said, we don't want Ugandan eggs, we don't want Ugandan maize. So these alone affect the fairness that we are discussing in a treaty. So first of all, the leaders play a big role. As we, the community, do at least a smaller part. But the leadership of any country play a big role. And another thing, these leaders also, the 7 countries now, the leaders must be fair to each other. There's no reason why there should be interference, or for example, in internal politics of any other country.
Yes.
Because you remember, when the deputy president of Kenya visited Uganda, they were insulting him in his country. Why do you visit Uganda? If we still have these kind of elements, for example, when a Kenyan come to visit his counterpart in Uganda, it's a problem. They complain, then there's a problem. And also the issue of corruption, the issue of having policies that give equal opportunities. All these issues must be discussed. As I've told you, we cannot say we are in the same community and I need a work permit to operate in Rwanda and I need a work permit to work in Kenya or Tanzania. It shouldn't be like this. You look at the problems that Ugandans have had in South Sudan. How many are who have lost their thing? Okay. Look at the Uganda's contribution towards the stability of South Sudan, and see how Ugandans were being treated there. So this is the fairness I'm talking about. We have to stop seeing each other as Kenyans, as Ugandans, as Rwandese, as what, but we see ourselves as East Africans. Like that, the implementation of this will go in practice.
Okay, now won't the political unrest and conflicts that are going on in the Democratic Republic of Congo affect this new marriage, and its integration into the East African community in terms of trade as well as social aspects?
It will affect, indeed, yes. But there will be remedies. Because before it was Congo alone, but it's now other 6 states going to join it and find a solution and lasting solution to the challenges they have. As I've told you, when you look at the unrest we are talking about, the rebels, sometimes you can see in Bunaga, in where?
Is it Bundibujo?
Where they were fighting yesterday, near our border. You can see that when they fight, the effects come to our side.
Absolutely.
So, and we could even hear the gunshots across our borders. Yes. So it is a clear indication that if UPDF, for example, sit this side and say, don't come this way, and Congo also fight from the other side, then the problem is solved in between there. But because the will is not there, and also there are international laws, that an asylum seeker, a prisoner of war, you have to treat them well, you shouldn't hand them over. All these to be put in practice, we must have a common man charter that can give equal opportunity with no betrayal. You don't discuss this, you sign this, and you do the contrary behind the scene. We have to follow the rule book if we want to benefit as countries.
Okay, now some people have mentioned that the East African community should be glad to have Congo, not the other way around. What are your thoughts on this?
You see, I saw Ugandans celebrating, but they should wait, I can tell you. Joining today, I mean, people should not start driving to Congo now with their goods and what. I mean, there is a lot to put in place. There is immigration issues, for example. You can't just cross a country. There is border issues. How are you going to be accommodated? Which nature? They have even standard policies internally there. You can't trade in this. You can't trade out of this. Yes. So all this now, the Ministry of Trade and Foreign Affairs must work together to find the better way of trading with Congo. But I've told you, there's a problem of infrastructure. How do you cannot carry all these goods on an aircraft. You need proper connection, because some of these goods that we meant to sell to Congo are perishables, and they can get destroyed they can get spoiled in 2-3 days. Yes. So the Ministry of Trade now should come up with the Foreign Affairs and agree on a better way of trading. Congo is a very good market, but also we need to do what they call target marketing. We shouldn't be taking what they have. We should be taking what they don't have. Or we take what they have, but with added value. these are all the factors we should look at. So Ugandans, the market has been officially established, but there are protocols that we are supposed to follow for us to make sure we follow suit. And also the instability issue. If a border you are supposed to use now to access the market, there is fighting, how are you going to trade? So they should, Congo has come on board, let the other leaders sit with them and help them to stabilize their country. And also address the issues of those who are fighting them. Because you see, even those who fight in a state, sometimes they have a right reason to fight.
Yes.
So there must be an amicable way of solving conflicts using the internal solutions without involving the external forces.
Okay, now as we wrap up this conversation, I would like to ask you, how soon can Ugandans start celebrating, Congo's integration into Uganda and the benefits of DR Congo joining the East African community? Yeah,
as long as they hear that Congo is now stable and Congo has moved a path of developing their infrastructure.
Yes.
Because as I've told you, in any business, in any economy, you need a proper accessibility for you to trade.
Yes.
Without proper accessibility, you can't trade. So Ugandans should wait. I think the time is not limited. As I've told you, some of these conflicts that need to be solved need to take time.
Yes.
And you see now, Congo, they are using a different currency, we use a different currency, which is dominated by the US dollar. When you look at the inflation, when you look at the fluctuation of rates against the dollar in Uganda, or how much does the Ugandan shilling sell against the Kenyan shilling, there is still a very big deficit. That's why they came up to propose even an independent currency to trade, because using the 7 currencies, it was going to be a problem. Because one country will lose and another country will benefit. Because among the 7 countries, there are those with proper infrastructure in their finances and economy, and which we are not following a suit as Ugandan. Yes. So if you are integrating a bad idea with a good idea, you need time also to solve the obstacles in between there. So they should wait. At the moment, they can celebrate the signing of agreement, but the proper fruits of this muungano will come at the right time. And also, finally, you see, we have a biggest challenge, and this is what leaders should also be discussing.
Yes.
Because Mwalimu Nyerere, when I was quoting him, when he was talking about the integration of East Africa, he said, if you are still having leaders who are spreading hatred talk, for example,
yes,
against different ethnics, against different groups, you cannot have the integration work when you still have people with such mentality. So, as I've told you, we must start looking at ourselves as Africans, not even East Africans, but Africans, because Africa is the richest continent, but the poorest. Why? Poor mindset and poor leadership. These are the best factors to define why we are poor, yet we are rich.
Oh, yes. Now, the complete connection of the Atlantic and the Indian Ocean of the East African bloc, will this boost trade in the region? Yeah,
it will. It will. You see, now 7 countries need to speak a language of independence. For example, if you have a good, any good you want to trade on the international market, add value on it so that you have big bargaining power.
Yes.
Because what is happening now, if you don't buy, for example, Ugandan coffee, and you have small issues, somebody will go and buy it in Kenya. No, but imagine if, for example, we come up with one terms of reference, and you say, without fulfilling the following, we can't sell you coffee. And when we say we can't sell you, we talk about the East Africa, not Kenya, not Rwanda, not one country. So, becoming together, we get what they call big bargaining power on anything, where either export or import.
Yes.
So, it's a very good advantage. But my problem is on implementation, because, as I've told you, in Kenya, in the last 30 years, they have had 4 presidents. In Uganda, we have had 1. In Congo, they have had 5. Here we have,
Okay.
I mean, what I'm saying, there is a political issue that also need to be, it's not about changing the leadership. But
Yes.
what I'm saying, a political stability determines a lot. You look why Uganda is receiving so many of refugees. It is
Yes.
because there is at least a relief that somebody knows when I run into Uganda, I'm not instead going to be arrested. I'm not going to be killed. For example, they think there is life in Uganda, which should be the same in all of the countries. But I'm giving you a reference where Ugandan traders have died in Sudan, where they have died across the borders.
Yes.
I'm saying the issue of security must be solved, and all lives must matter.
Yes.
There's no reason why somebody who has taken his goods to any country, not even in South Sudan, not even in our country, Uganda, should get any problem, because we take maize to our Kenyan brothers and sisters to save lives, because they need food.
Yes.
Not only to get money, but to save life there. Food is security, food is healthy. Uganda happens to have the best organic foods.
Yeah.
And we must sell ourselves in such position. But I'm saying there is political issues, there is a security issue, there is social issues that need to be addressed. There is issue of corruption that need to be solved. Without solving the corruption part of it, there is no development in any country in Africa.
Okay. Now that we see Congo joining the East African community, however, we know that Congo has been part of other blocs like SADC and COMESA as well. Now, won't this affect her dealings with the East African community?
No, East African community is more serious than those coalitions. Yeah, in terms of implementation of the treaty, East Africa is more serious than those groups, because, as I've told you, Congo has been with all these conflicts without having any help from those coalitions. So now, for them to join East Africa, it is a goal to them, and I'm sure if they go by the rule books and do their part, doing their part, I mean protect themselves and also set goals, because there is a challenge, for example, of the northern part of Congo, which was ignored for many years, and that's why it is easier for any group to organize and start fighting the government.
Yes.
But you saw Uganda took an example in northern Uganda, the Lord Resistance Army. When they were fighting, there was no trade. We could not travel to Soroti through Lida. But now you can travel like this, which is, I think, it is an achievement. But people change their lives when there is no fighting. They have to stop the fighting. They need to put protocols that help them to have a joint intelligence center, for example. Yeah. Share intelligence, because terrorism is there. The enemies will remain. But how are you going to solve the problem? But not as a one country, but as a East African community as a whole. These are all the values they must look at. Okay. If we want to benefit in the treaty.
You talked about some parts of the Democratic Republic of Congo being ignored, like the northern part, and they're only focusing on the eastern part.
Yes.
And knowing that Congo is bigger than all the other 6 countries in the East African community currently, won't this breed any social, political, security, and economic challenges or unrest?
Yeah, you see, for any force, for example, to win such conflicts in Congo, you need a lot of preparation. And Congo, being that they have gone through a lot in the last 30 years, I think they had not prepared enough to fight as Congo alone. But now, since they are in a group, they are now in a team, and a working team, a team that has good plan to put in practice. Because you see, Ugandans, maybe next time when you invite me, we should look at the advantages and disadvantages of this treaty. Yes. Because the advantages are almost 100%. But the challenge is putting all of them in practice. And the obstacle of this is the interest, individual countries' interest. Because individual countries have different goals. But they have to agree that we shouldn't grow as Uganda alone. We have to grow when South Sudan is growing. We have to grow when our neighbor in the western part is growing. Without that selfishness, then we can achieve a lot. So, being part of the other groups before is not going to sabotage their plan to have to enjoy the benefits of East African community. I think it's a high time. It was the right time for Congo to come on board, and I'm sure even other countries may say, much as I'm in SADC, but they may also have a foot in the East African community. But now we are going to have big bargaining power. Countries from West Africa will come, SADC will come, Commercial will come, the East African Union will also come and say, how do we start now dealing with the East Africa? Because there are 5 countries with more than 250 million people. With the economy of these, let us go and trade with them. Even the Western countries, even the America, the Canada, the Chinese, now they're going to come and start looking not only at Uganda or East Africa or 3 countries, but now of 7 countries. So there are many developmental benefits that we can get if we stick to the rule book by setting our goals. But the only problem, some of our leaders, for example, when things get bad, they get weakened and they start to go to borrow. They start to go and adjust their positions. But as long as we keep our position firm, we can benefit in this.
Absolutely. Now, with the unrest that is going on in Congo, we've definitely seen refugees come into Uganda that we have,
more than 10,000.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Now the question is, when this pose a threat to Uganda, not just Uganda alone, but every other East African country, because the enemies of Congo might see it as intimidating to them, so won't it create some kind of unrest to all the other East African countries now?
One of the clauses in this treaty is that the enemy, your enemy must be my enemy.
So we fight collectively.
We fight together.
Yes.
But these are things which are hard to implement. As I've told you, the political landscape in the end of this country determines all this chaos you see. So by you setting aside in such circumstances, you create a threat to yourself. Because some of these groups are strong. They can sabotage your economy also. So they need to carefully manage this kind of conflicts by not showing side, by not taking a side. Because you may fight a group today, you may not help a group, and tomorrow it is in power. So the East African community won't work when you start seeing each other as enemies. So the first thing they have to do, the East African Parliament we have, must now enact some articles now based on the current situation, because the treaty we are talking about was drafted so many years. Yes. And also based on the current situation, it needs some adjustment, they need some amendment. So it's a high time now to sit, because it was closed on 6 countries, it was 3, now to 5, now to 6, now to 7. So they have now to adjust accordingly, because the 21st century challenges must be solved with the 21st century remedies. Yes, exactly. Yes. That's how it has to be.
Yes. Now, seeing and knowing that the Democratic Republic of Congo is a very resourceful country, there is timber, there is gold, and so many other natural minerals.
They have conflicts because of what they have.
Oh, what they have, absolutely. Yes. Now, the question would be...
The status they have cause a threat and makes them very attractive to the selfish individuals outside Congo.
Yes.
And that's why I told you some of these conflicts they are engineered by their status. They are
in Congo.
Exactly.
Yes.
That's it.
But then again, how can the East African community maximize its benefits from Congo's membership, given the fact that Congo is a resourceful country?
Yeah.
How can Uganda and the other countries maximize
these
benefits?
7 countries have to change their way of managing their economies. When you look at Uganda, this is where I live and I grew up, and I can give an example of Uganda. We normally sell our goods outside, half processed or never processed. And by doing so, we end up indirectly donate to the Western countries or the Western companies. If, for example, Congo put refineries of their minerals and they start making the jewelries themselves,
yes,
they start making the golden watches, they start getting everything from the minerals they have, from the timbers they have, they can be rich and they can go to a second and a first world country in less than 20 years.
Yes.
But the problem we still have leaders who think that our good products should go out of our country as raw material. Imagine now, if a kilo of gold unprocessed is sold at $30,000 US, and when it goes outside Congo, they make one watch, for example, for a lady or for a man, and come back at 50,000 US dollars. The same minerals they have got from you, they go, add some value, purify them, they bring them back, and they sell them to you times 6. This is crippling a growth of an economy.
Yes.
If you sell anything prematurely, this is what the leaders must look at to stop selling our good, even our foods here. When you look at the food we have, one of the best, organic in Uganda, but we sell them unprocessed. They come back when they are processed. We buy them already. A lot of money.
Yes.
The government, of course, will tax them, but we benefit little as we who are selling, we who are farmers, we who are traders, we who are exporters, we don't benefit 100%. But the company that adds value get more money.
Benefits, yes.
And this is the same money they give us after some time, and so, oh, these
and
people love us, they have given us this money. So really, we should stop taking pride in ignorance. We must learn, we must research, we must study, we must find our position and stick to our policies. Like this, we shall have big bargaining power, because I've told you we have the best products, but we don't know how to market our products. That's why you will find so many aircrafts loading all the good minerals from this country, taking them outside, purify them, they bring them back, and they are sold times 10 of the price they sold from them.
Okay, now the East African country or community, East African community having started from just 3 countries, and now it's 7 countries. And we definitely see it extending all the way to West Africa. Which other countries should we see that are we likely to see come on board?
The other Congo, the brother zero.
Yes.
Yes, that one will come. The one of President Soso Wangeso of Congo brother zero. I'm seeing that one coming in on board very soon. Because they have almost common interest, and the leader of that country is also close to our leader here, even to the leader of Congo now. So I think it's one of them that will take a step to also to join the East African community. Yes, and of course what I can say, if we market ourselves properly, everyone will seek to join.
Okay.
And how do we market ourselves? Stick to the principles. Simple. There's nothing else.
Okay. And considering that it's British colonies and French colonies in the East African community, does the element of a common language become an issue? And that is Swahili. Well, we see that Swahili is mostly spoken in Rwanda as well, in Tanzania, in Kenya, even in the DRC as well. It's not as common in Uganda. Yes. So does it become an issue? Does language become an issue? Yeah,
of course. For you to have easy trading among these countries, you need also to have an independent language as they think about the currency, as they thought about having united. Because even as individual countries, we could still trade, we could still grow our economy. Absolutely. But now the unity came to have more bargaining power and also to be able to trade among ourselves. Because I will give you an example. 2 years ago, just like the rest of the world, we had the pandemic COVID-19 here. One gentleman in Uganda here came up with a remedy, Covidex. Imagine if this treaty was powerful as it should be, and we only sell 200 million doses to the rest of the 6 countries. How much money would Uganda get? That's one product.
So much, yes.
So you can see that even trading among ourselves, we already rich as one country. One product, Covidex, would bring us trillions and trillions of money in here, because it's an idea. But also in the policies, how do we share the science and the technology ideas we have? How do you share research? If, for example, a man in Rwanda find out something, how do we work together, for example, to come out? When you look at the International Space Station, Americans did something, and they called their counterparts of Russia, China, Japan, Germany, and told them, go and do these parts so that we can put the station in place. They work together. So there is a need of working together and make sure you bring this piece, I bring this idea, I make this product, you bring that one. And also to say, if Uganda need a product you have, before you sell it to a Brazilian, before you sell it to any other market, first supply and certify the market at your next door before you sell externally. But now the problem would be the Western country, for example, would be buying the product times 3, and your neighbor want to buy it at a certain percentage, and because you have internal issues that you need to solve and you need the money, you will say, no, I will not sell in East Africa, let me sell elsewhere. So the treaty must be binding this kind of obstacles and errors to make sure that you first certify your neighbor. Like, for example, if people have any problem or a problem of food security in our neighbors, why continue selling to a country, for example, in Latin America or where, when my neighbor here is dying of hunger?
They expect,
but because they want money and they have different ambitions, they can sell to the other country. So the East African community must look into all this. But the other factor also would be, how do we sustain the community, the East African community? And because it needs administrative costs. Who should foot these? Are all the 7 countries honoring their obligations? Are they doing everything in time? There are times I saw when some members are not coming, they can't enact any law, they can't pass any motion because they have no quorum. All these gaps must be closed, and the issue of language is a priority, because we have now an advantage that Swahili is already spoken in 2 or 3 countries. And in South Sudan it would be easier because Swahili has a percentage of Arabic and they speak Arabic. So if we start teaching it in our schools to be added on the curriculum in 10 or 15 years, and there's no leader who is currently in power who should think that by himself or herself we will see the comprehensive benefits of the East African community. Even myself, I may not see, because this is a long-term plan. Yes. That is going to benefit not only us who are living currently, but even the next generation. Yes. As I've told you, Mwalimu Nyerere talked about this, and the issue was emphasizing was ukabila. Ukabila means tribalism. You have people in the 21st century who are still talking about tribalism. Nonsense. People don't have food, people lack what to eat, and you're talking about tribalism, you are talking about the ethnic division. These are the enemies of development. If you are not an enemy of development, you can't talk about segregating groups of people. Okay. We all share the same blood, we breathe the same oxygen. Why do you divide people? So without teaching the patriotism of East Africans, we cannot achieve this, because I've told you there are people who come to the meeting, they pretend they are part of the community, but when they go out they say, no, ours is this, theirs is that. All that element must go out of their hearts.
Okay, but now we see that DRC is definitely already part of the East African community, and you have highlighted the advantages and the downsides to it, but most of it are actually advantages.
I think it has come at a time when they even have the right leader to do this. I was surprised when I found the President Tshisekedi, before he even made a year in the office, in a country called Turkey, and I found him engaging with different groups and encouraging investors to go to his country. Yes. And he said, we are going to put a parallel way of doing things to help you come and establish here, help us to build our country. In Rwanda here, the Turkish community have the largest project on Africa. They are doing it with Rwandans. Even in Uganda here, there are so many investors who are coming from Turkey to work here. We have a good relationship. So it's a high time for us to start sharing the fruits together. Like, for example, if a project should have come to Uganda and we can't accommodate it at that particular time, let it go to the neighbor, don't block it. Like that, our economy will grow and we shall have big bargaining power on the products we are producing. Well,
there you have it, and those are the final remarks from Hajji Ssekamatte, who is a political and social analyst, and he has joined us, to deliberate on this matter of DRC joining the East African community. Thank you so much, Hajji,
for joining us. You're welcome. It has been a very tough matter to discuss, but due to time, I think next time, viewers, you will forgive us, but next time we shall elaborate when we find enough time to discuss on these touching issue, because we all need to get rich, but how do we get rich? These are one of the platforms that we must use. I thank you very much for hosting me.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for staying tuned to Sunrise at Sea. Do not go anywhere. Coming up is our wellness, beauty and lifestyle segment, and we are talking body at Good Morning and Don't Blink.